Can start now.
Okay.
But yeah, it's a pleasure to have you here, and I'm really excited for you to talk about defensive line play. Um, Maybe you can start with a small introduction. Wh- what's your name and on which places you have coached in the past, and then we can go over and dig deep into the defensive line play and try to get a little bit better today.
Okay. Um, I'll just go ahead and start. Just show this first slide on my presentation. Um, my name is Peter Noonan. I'm the defensive tackles coach at Pflugerville Hendrickson in Pflugerville, Texas, which is near the Austin area, so kind of in the middle of the state. Um, and I'm very blessed and fortunate to have this opportunity. I greatly appreciate Coach for letting me come on and talk. This is starting my 12th year coaching football. I've been a defensive line coach, a linebackers coach, secondary, as well as assisted coaching offensive line and wide receivers. I've been at one school in the Houston, Texas area. I've been at a few schools in the Dallas Fort Worth area, mostly in the southeast side of Dallas. And then I was in the Kingsville area of Texas, which is along the southern part of the coastal bend, for a couple of seasons. And here I am now at Pflugerville Hendrickson. I love defensive line. That's what I played in high school.
Mm-hmm.
And just working with these young men is great. Aside from coaching defensive line and other football positions, I assist in creating the program for our football strength conditioning. I've worked with other athletic programs before in the past to create their programs, as well as been able to network with a lot of other great coaches. So if I don't have an answer, I have a great lot of people that I can turn to and ask questions. So anything related to defensive line play, strength conditioning, I'm happy to answer as best I can.
Yeah, coach, that's pretty amazing how much experience you have, and I'm really excited for your talk for the defensive line play. And so I think we can now start and dive deep into the fundamentals and drills you like to talk about.
Okay. At Pflugerville Henderson, one of our topics. Do you see the slide that says philosophy?
Now we are now at defensive line play fundamentals at the first slide.
Okay. Okay. I think my computer's kind of freezing up on a little bit. So as it kind of unfreezes, hopefully here just in a moment, we have our kind of philosophy, the way we approach defensive line play. We call it spill. So we want to be let's see, that works. Come on. We want to be smart. All right, we want to be students of the game. We want to know how to defeat our opponent, which is our worst self. More than anything, the person that you line up across, okay,
sorry for the
may or may not be.
It's hard to understand you. I think the internet connection is a little bit low. Maybe we have the experience if you shut down your video streaming, so your camera. If you close your camera, it's a little bit better.
All right, let me do that. Cool. So, like I said, our philosophy is spill. Um, we want to be smart. We want to be students of the game. We want to know how to defeat the person across from us, but we also want to know how to defeat our worst self. That's the voice. That's the internal conflict of every day coming to practice, every day trying to give it our best effort, every day making sure that we maximize every rep that we get, whether you're the starter or the backup. It's important. We want to be physical. We want consistent investment in increasing size, strength, mobility, flexibility, and conditioning. All of that matters. We'll talk about it here in just a little bit, but when it comes to your ability to play defensive line, it's not just about being the biggest and the fastest and the strongest, because you have to be able to change your angles and you have to be able to move and change quickly. So we want to be both mobile and flexible, and we want to be able to last for the whole game. Well, we want to be instinctive. What we do from a fundamental standpoint and the counter moves that we have, we want those to be second nature, like breathing. They're extremely important. Uh, and so because of that, if you're not practicing the fundamentals and some counter moves, then you're kind of not maximizing potential. You can have a whole lot of tools in your toolbox, but you got to understand how to use them all, and you got to know which ones are the best ones to use for you. We want to be lightning fast off the ball. We want to know what our keys are and how we can maximize getting off the ball as quick as possible. And we want to have a lunch pail and hard hat effort. We want to do our job to the best of our ability every rep, every practice, every down, every game. Expectations for our kids and players that I coach is from every school I've been at. We don't we don't hand out playbooks anymore. A lot of the stuff what we do is either done repetition wise, or we have done so much through Zoom and shown them, or they can find it in some online resource that we have, whether it's for us at Google Classroom or like the Zooms or via email that we potentially sent out, or what we use is Huddle to watch film. So in those applications, there's a playbook or there's notes. We expect those to be studied and looked over. We expect film and weekly installs, and then review of practice and other technique video that we share with our players. We expect them to watch those, and we expect our players to repeat their technique until it becomes something that they cannot mess it up. We don't want to just get it right one time. We want to get it right all the time. We want to have a mentality of refuse to be blocked, right? One man cannot block us. Two men cannot move us. And this is a quote that I took from a really good coach I believe he's in the Midwest. And he says, every time I put my hand on the ground, it has to mean something. Coach Ricky Kuhn is a really great coach from a defensive line standpoint. He's a head coach at a junior college in the Midwest of the United States, and he still coaches D line. He still gets after it, and he does a great job. Our objectives: we want to disrupt the line of scrimmage. We want to win the point of attack. We want to tackle well. We want to refuse to be blocked, and we want to affect the outcome of every play. You're not always going to get sacks. So if you're not always going to get sacks, we want to get tackles for loss. We want to destroy pullers, disrupt the ball path. Obviously, sacks are great, but we also want to hit the quarterback and move the quarterback. Not every quarterback likes to throw on the run. Most like to stand still and be able to throw. So we want to get him moving. We want to create takeaways. I've really tried to emphasize the idea of taking the ball away instead of creating turnovers. I think it creates a different mindset, it puts more emphasis on that ball being a very important something. So we want to take it back because it belongs to us, and we always want to compete. So getting into, the fundamentals, the very first thing that we talk about is stance. I used to be very rigid about how I taught stance, but over my years and in learning and talking with other people, the biggest deal about stance is have guidelines and understand that every player that you have is different from a size, shape, and ability standpoint. Some guys are going to be able to get in a lower stance. Some guys are going to have to be in a little bit taller stance because whether they have bad hips or bad ankles or bad knees, they don't understand how to position themselves just yet. You have to be able to adjust and understand that every kid is different. So when we're in a base stance, we want our feet hip width or slightly wider. So we don't want to be too narrow. We'd like our toes to be square or slightly staggered with everything pointing forward. When I say slightly staggered, just like where it says in the pass rush stance, we want to be more than toe to instep. If you think about an Olympic sprinter, when they're in the blocks and they're about to come out of the blocks, they don't have a huge long stagger. If you have a very long stagger, then what you're going to end up doing is you're going to have wasted movement, and we don't want wasted movement, right? Every millisecond is important. Every inch, every centimeter, every meter is important on the field of play. So because of that, we want to make sure that we make all the necessary pre-snap adjustments physically so that we can maximize what we do post-snap. We want a good bend in the hips, knees, and ankles. We want to create a good shin angle that launches us forward, not up. So when you're in your stance, how you adjust the hips, the hip height of your player needs to be looked at from a shin angle standpoint. Where do you want them to go? Do you want them to go forward? Do you want them to go left or right? Are they going to be moving across the face of somebody? Put them again pre-snap physically in a position to have success. We say we were going to put our man hand down, okay? So if we are lined up on the inside of a guard or the outside of a tackle, that hand closest to that man is the hand that goes down. So for our guys, they may play in a right-handed stance or they may play in a left-handed stance. Now, this is something that's not really a negotiable thing for us, just because what we're trying to do is get them to understand that the hand that's down, that's the hand, that's the side, that's the edge that you're going to attack. Whereas, if you just let them put either hand down, they may not always remember, and they may just fire out versus attack who they need to attack, depending on how you play your defense and such. We're going to have a 60-40 weight distribution. We want power in our hips to be able to explode out, but then we also want some weight in our hands so that we're not going to hop forward. Okay. When we're in a pass rush stance, it's very similar to our base stance, but we will get a little bit more stagger. We are going to be a little bit higher in the hips because, again, we're trying to launch and take off. And this is more for our defensive ends that rush the outside versus our interior defensive tackles. At Hendrickson, we are a 4-2-5 defense, and we play with 4 down linemen. So our 2 interior tackles, they pretty much stay in this stance even in a passing down, unless we're going to be creating movement, and we may adjust from there. But with our defensive ends and their speed, we allow them to create a little bit more from a get off standpoint. One thing I didn't talk about with the base stance that I will talk about with the pass rush stance is if you were to put your hand directly in front of your face, okay, what you want is you want to create a V or a check mark, okay? And so then when you translate from in front of your face to on the ground, you keep that same concept of what we call the speed V. With your elbow and your wrist rotated inward, okay? And why we say that versus the old traditional way of fingertips in front, thumb kind of closer, pointed towards you, is you're going to strike the man with your thumb up and your elbow in anyway. So again, this goes back to adjust physically pre-snap to set yourself up for success post-snap. So if our hand is aligned the way it already is going to be striking, then we don't have wasted movement. And what we do is we avoid what we call the chicken wing, where you have, your elbow sticking out wider than your body, like a chicken wing does, right? We want that elbow in tight to our rib cage because that's where more power can come from. Again, with the 60-40 weight distribution, and the biggest deal is on this pass rush stance, you want to make sure that your key is going to give you the greatest launch off the ball.
Hey, Coach, maybe one question if you like to.
Sure.
How do you differ between the interior and the edge rushers in the passing rush stance?
So in general, our edge rushers, we always want to build what we call a cage around the quarterback. So that means when we build that cage, okay, let me, here we go. All right. If this is the quarterback, okay, are you seeing the blue circle?
Yes, we see.
Okay, great.
See that.
All right. So if this is the quarterback, ideally what we want then, okay, is our edge rusher, our tackle, and our edge rusher, right? We'll create this cage around the quarterback, okay? Let's say we run it something like that or whatnot. So for the interior guys, their job is to keep the quarterback in front of them, with our edge rushers forcing the quarterback one way or the other, okay? But again, we don't want to go past the quarterback. We want to keep him on our inside shoulder. Ideally, we want to keep the quarterback on our inside shoulder in order to cage him, all right, so that he cannot scramble out. Excuse me. Now, obviously, week to week, we can make some game plan adjustments in terms of, what the capability of that quarterback is. If he's a big time scrambler, we may not be heavy up the field on our rush. We want to keep everything in front of us. If he's a pocket passer and he doesn't have great mobility, then we may give our ends a little bit more freedom to really get after the quarterback. But in Texas, we do see some very mobile quarterbacks that are pretty fast. So, depending again on these ends and their speed and ability, kind of adjusts what we want from them. But in theory and in base, our deal is create the cage, especially the interior guys, keep the quarterback in front of them, and then our two edge rushers or whoever's rushing off the edge, whether it's an outside linebacker, safety, corner, or inside linebacker, they want to make sure that they keep that quarterback on their inside shoulder, all right, and don't get past him. Because if you get past him, now you create lanes.
As a general rule, do you have the defensive tackles have their toes more square than the defensive end?
We try to. but again, you know, that's some things where it still comes down to the comfort of the kid and what they can do. If they, you know, I've got a couple of seniors. They have always played with a stagger, and and they have a great get off. Well, I don't need to change anything. I can adjust their technique out of their stance and how they use their hands. But as far as their stance and their get off, if that's already good, I don't want to mess with it too much, because ultimately a kid is going to play better and faster if they have some level of comfort in what they're doing. So if they're comfortable in their stance, but they can get out fast, I would say let it be. If it's something to where they have a very slow get off, then we need to adjust their keys, but we also need to make sure that their stance is going to generate a good get off.
Okay, I got you. Because we had, due to some injuries, we had to move some defensive ends in to the interior, and they take a very very long step at the first step, like an edge rusher would do, who like to step behind the tackle, and we found out that it's difficult for the interior rusher because they're getting double teamed a lot, and that was why I was asking about the first. Maybe we can talk about the first step a little bit later. How you would differ or not differ it between between defensive ends and the defensive tackles.
So regardless, and when it comes to our first step, and let me see if that's uh, the next one. So these are our keys. And so what we do is we key the near knee or the near foot of our man. We can look in at the ball, but we don't want to get so fixated on the ball that we can't see what our man is doing. But whatever his keys are telling us, our first step is really not a measure of how big of a first step, but it's a matter of how fast we can put 2 feet in the ground once the ball is snapped. So if you can get your guys to understand that they need to move quickly and put 2 feet in the ground quickly, that has to shorten up their step anyway. And then from there, they react based on what that key is telling us. So for instance, if that guy, if that guard or tackle is kick stepping, you know, now you can speed up, all right, and try to cover more ground. But if we take big, long steps, a lot of times that's going to create what we call a reach, right? He's going to come to he's going to come from inside out and close our outside shoulder off, or he's going to be able to, I'm talking about the offensive line, is going to be able to drive us out or away from the ball if we take too big of a step. So as a way to kind of shorten up steps, we talk about getting 2 feet in the ground or 3 feet in the ground quickly, because you just cannot do that if you have 2 big long steps or even 1 long step. Again, it comes down to efficient movement. So the faster I can get 2 feet in the ground post snap, the better I'm going to be, and then can react from there. So, you know, continuing on, we're off the ball and we're attacking our man. We want to attack the shoulder tip and hip, or chest and hip. And we want to be on what we call on an edge. We don't want to work down the middle of somebody. Whether you're an undersized guy or a big guy, there's always a chance that you may play somebody that's bigger or stronger than you. So there's no sense in trying to work through the middle of somebody. You want to work half to a third of a man, and we try to stay on that edge. We were, again, elbows rotated in, working to lock out. We have 2 hands and we have 2 eyes in our head, so we have 4 eyes in total. Your hands can be doing one thing and your eyes look elsewhere. so that you can find that ball. We want to keep a low pad level and hips lower than our man, right? A lot of times we say pads down, right? Keep your pads down. But the other thing is lower hips, right? Lower center of gravity creates more balance, but it also can create more explosive power. I think if you are coming from the bottom of a squat or the bottom of a power clean, squat clean, to stand up, you have to use those hips to be explosive. So coming from low hips to high hips and using hands to lock out helps. And the other thing is always keeping our feet moving. Short choppy steps are going to be better than big long steps, especially in wet or unfavoring weather conditions and field conditions. Short choppy steps versus long trying to grab steps, that'll help. And the other thing we do is the first thing we want to do every play is we want to knock our opponent back off the line of scrimmage. We want to assert dominance and reestablish the line of scrimmage on his heel or butt line in order to create penetration in the backfield.
Can I ask another question?
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's just on the first step. When we talk about the first step, I think I'm on the same page with you for the interior defensive line. I have one question about your coaching of the defensive end when they are in a passing situation and they are lined up in a pass rush stance. Do you coach a small step or will the step get a little bit bigger in that situation?
So when he recognizes pass, so initially the steps should all be the same, 2 fast short steps. Once he sees that tackle is kicking, then he's going to speed up his steps to try and close ground. But it just comes with repetition and consistency. Let me see if I can show some practice film from the other day. This won't give away any secrets, but I think it'll help kind of reinforce what we're talking about. Okay, so okay, so we do a lot of what we call pod work, all right, or half line. In this case, this is a half line deal. So center guard tackle. Here's my defensive tackle. Here's my defensive end. We don't know what they're doing. We don't have anything preset. The offensive line coach gives them a call, and then we give a call separate from them, and we just execute based on what's going on. So right here, notice he's a little bit staggered, right? He's not totally squared up, but he's got a good get off. He has a little bit more stagger here, okay? Ideally, what we want, right, is we want to be able to put cleats in the ground so that we can get off the ball fast. So as he gets off the ball, right, notice he attacks, right, and then he works to lock out. What we tell them is we have to get better at this is don't worry about this ball back here for the sake of the drill, right? What is your keys telling you to do? So he's keying this near knee right here, right? That near knee goes away. He went straight ahead, and now he has to redirect, okay? So instead of having to go straight and then redirect, if he just keys that knee and he steps here, right, it should take him this way, right? We don't want wasted movement. Let's see if I can find a pass rush clip. I don't have them labeled. Okay. So as we get off here, all right, he's attacking. Here's his man hand. Notice he's got a stagger, and he's got a little bit more of a stagger. Now this young man right here, this is exactly what, that's a pretty textbook stance right there. Just the flat back, our speed V in the hands, good bend in the waist, the knees and the hips. And this isn't a bad stance, all right? But what I'd like is these hips down a little bit, okay, to create more power to explode. But he still has a good get off, okay, that allows him to attack. So as this defensive tackle is attacking, he sees that this gap is moving. He's in the A gap. Gap is moving, so he's filled the A gap. Now on the defensive end side, they do what they call a hinge block. Right, he steps down and then back to give the illusion of a pass rush. And that's something that, you have to be aware of and have to learn and have a plan for it. So it kind of dupes him, because he thinks, oh, this is supposed to be what am I supposed to do? All right. But, in a true pass setting, he would just be off the ball and going. All right. Not a good clip there. Let me try and find you a good clip. That one I know is not a good one. All right. So if this was a true, let's say, pass down situation, second and very long, third and very long, notice here his hips are a little bit higher, right?
Mm-hmm.
His shin angles are going to project him forward, okay, in a good pass rush situation. He's got a little bit more of a stagger. He's toe to heel versus toe to instep right here. Okay. So, he's thinking pass right now, right? He takes two fast steps. 1, 2. Now he can redirect and squeeze down the line. Okay. Let's see here. Oop. Too many buttons. So again, he sees the get off here. Very nice get off by this young man, right? Working. The only thing that I'd like better is if he would work on an edge. He's working now. He's stronger than he is, and he's off balance, right? Anytime you can get an offensive lineman on one foot, you're going to win more often than not. Okay. But what you're seeing on the other side by this end is he's trying to work to an edge. And this young man is working down the middle of somebody. So what we'd like is that both guys work to an edge versus not. And he ends up getting there with a great club and counter. Okay, club rip right here, sells it high, just like he's been taught. Then you see on the other side, okay, this defensive end gets very low. All right, you can't even see him because he's covered up. But right there, he's dipped underneath and he's run what we call run the hoop. Okay, so here's his path, Ben. Coming right here, coming around the curve, all right, as if you were running the curve of a track. He realizes it's still pass, so he's going. All right, so there's the top of that. I hope that helps a little bit more.
Yes, it does, Coach. It's
Awesome.
That's
All
great
right.
insight. So I think we have to be a little bit better on working on our second step into the ground. First, second step a little bit quicker, and then we can attack in the pass out of these two quick steps.
Right. Yeah, that's definitely something to focus on and to think about is how how you do that and such. So how we line up, all right, is obviously based on your defense, what you run, and the way you call things. But in general, right, our base alignment is going to be outside, okay, or inside, and it's going to be on a shoulder or tip of an offensive lineman. We could line up in the gap, so we would line up directly in the middle of a gap. We could shade, which would mean we would come about, half or 2/3 of the way to an offensive lineman, and then head up would be directly in front of him. So those are pretty much the alignments that we have. And then from everything from there is just some form of post snap movement, whether it's straight at the man, straight into the gap, or possibly crossing his face on a stun.
Got you. So we play base, shade, and head up alignment. We don't do gap at the moment.
Yeah, this is more of a very unique thing, and a situational possibly. More, but definitely, base, base, shade, and head up are typically your three most common. And then gap obviously depends on the ability of a kid, and then what you want to do with your defense.
Okay, what would be a situation when you line up a defensive lineman in a gap alignment?
So let's say, and this will be easier to draw out. Let's say you see the yellow square.
Yes, I can see it.
Okay. All right, so I'm going to kind of create. That's not what I want. An offensive line, and it'll kind of illustrate that a little bit better. All right. So if there's your standard offensive line, okay, and the reason we would line up potentially in a gap would just be in order to cancel, like let's say in a short yardage. So let's say we would put a tackle here, we put a tackle here, and we put an end, and we put an end. Okay. So what we're trying to do is we're just asking these guys to go right into the gap, okay, or shoot the gap, and cause penetration and disruption, because we have some kind of defensive player on the outside, right? And we want them to just be able to read and react based on what's going on in the backfield. So let's say short yardage, and you've got the quarterback, all right, and he likes to run quarterback sneak. So we may also just line up a defensive player right over the center, and we've canceled all these inside gaps, so that quarterback would have to go way out here or way out here to unblocked guys potentially, versus being able to come straight ahead.
Okay. And what would be your base rule? Where do you key the inside knee? So you put the hand down to the inside player, so the tackles to the snapper, and the both ends to the guards.
So we could, but it may also be a situational deal where we say put both hands down in a 4-point stance, and you just launch into the gap, and you're just kind of you're launching and lunging towards the offensive line, trying to get them to have to step towards you, okay, and in doing so, right, as they step towards you, they're more worried about getting cut and put on the ground than they are trying to execute their actual assignments. So it's kind of a way to use what they like to do as far as a cut block against them. That's a lot of times why you would see a gap alignment, as a way to kind of, again, close off and force the ball wide, but particularly in a very short yardage situation, possibly create penetration right away. I can recall a time when I was playing in high school. I was in a gap alignment, and I just shot and bear crawled through and was able to make a tackle in the backfield by simply just swiping at the quarterback's ankles, and he tripped over himself, and I had a tackle for loss, just simply going straight ahead this way. So, again, it's a situational deal more than anything, and it's just one of those where you say line up, probably in a 4-point stance, and go get them. It really doesn't have much in the way of rules, because what you're trying to do is cancel inside gaps and send that ball wide.
Yeah, I really like that idea. We play the same defensive front in short yardage, but at the moment we lined up at a 4-eye and a 2-eye technique.
Uh-huh.
But I really get it. How the gap alignment could be very suitable to that formation in short yardage and goal line situations.
Right. And the other thing that you could do is if you are playing here, right, you're saying playing 2 eyes and 4 eyes, you're already there. So what you can tell these guys is you pinch. So instead of going and attacking this man here, okay, you would actually you would actually take an angle towards this man's hip, okay. Again, getting the same effect as a gap alignment, but you get movement across. So as you collision, ideally you should be able to work forward. So these two guys should be working towards the center, trying to get vertical, So again, now you've canceled inside gaps, all right, but you've done it with more movement, okay? And it looks really, really good if you were to do this, let's say, instead of 2 eyes and 4 eyes, okay, let's say you did this and you had 5 techniques, okay, and you say you had a 3 technique, and you can either have a 2 eye or a double 3, or even a head up
both.
2.
Yeah,
okay,
we play both.
Let's say you're something like this. Same thing. You're asking the defensive line to pinch inside, and this movement across the face should force these guys to either come down on you, okay, or they let you go, and now you're free to go make a play in the backfield because you cross face. Their rule says if they cross my face, let them go. There's only going to be so many guys that get picked up out of this movement. Somebody's probably going to come free, or everybody's going to get blocked down on, which then allows somebody, either a linebacker or an outside safety that's rolled down, to come free.
Yeah, I think that's great. We have that pinch out of that front in our playbook. Maybe you can talk me through the steps, and the movement the defensive lineman is doing when he's slanting inside. Maybe
okay. Let me go back and we actually did some of that the other day. So let me oh, that's not what I want. Refresh your screen so I can. All right, this was today. I think this was a movement. Okay, so in this clip, I believe we get movement crossing face. So what we have right now is we have a 3 technique and a 5 technique. Sometimes we do play with stand-up 5 technique, guys.
Mm-hmm.
So this is a good stagger for a stand-up, okay? We don't want to be any wider than this. Sometimes you can be a little bit tighter, but again, it's about how his hips bend and his projected shin angles, right? This is
Mm-hmm.
his post foot, right? He's going to drive off of this foot and he's going to launch forward. So this shin angle kind of launches him up a little bit. This way, we might want him to drop some, so he's more attacking. But as we get the movement, all right, his aim point, okay, is to the next hip, to the next hip. All right. So when you cross face for us, our aim point is next man's hip,
Mm-hmm.
next man's hip. Some guys will say 45-degree step, and they'll try to be very precise. Here's the deal: there's no yes, there's yard lines, but kids don't have a measuring stick. They don't have protractors to determine angles. It's the same way with 2 fast steps into the ground and react. If you aim right, if this is the 90-degree angle and his aim point is next hip, well, that's pretty close to a 45-degree angle.
Mm-hmm.
So without having to try to do too much mental thinking and math, we give him a fixed point, okay, that he can get towards and then go. Obviously, gaps move. So just because their movement is going to put you here doesn't mean that it's always going to stay that way. You have to be able to play what we call the ricochet and redirect. So we have movements going inside, but the play is obviously going back to the defensive right. So we have to make adjustments. Let's see if I can find another good movement. All right, so again, this is we got an inside mover. He's staying on the outside. He was the only guy coming inside, but then notice he has to work back out. But again, his aim point still was towards that center's hip, then playing off, the ricochet.
Mm-hmm.
All right. This isn't a stunt, but it's a good get off by the defensive tackle. Get his hands and get locked out. This is very much what we want to see. He ends up behind because he fails to see his key, but he gets this lockout and he's getting his hips lower than him, so he's creating better leverage. And now he can get off and make a play. Yeah, I'm trying to find you a movement. We don't have them labeled, so so what you see with these two guys is they both try to go down the middle. We don't want to go down the middle. We want to work to an edge, and
Mm-hmm.
both of them are faster than their guys lined up across from them. So that's how you personally negate speed, by not taking advantage of that. Okay, he's
Mm-hmm.
got great speed. He's got great speed. These guys are definitely not as fast as them, but that's negated because they go straight down the middle,
Mm-hmm.
right? And they're going to waste energy trying to power rush or bull through somebody. Notice he almost loses himself because he's got leverage, right? And and so he can be beat.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that makes sense.
Let me try and find a movement. I think this was one.
But when you slam, the man foot is stepping to the next hip you're targeting, right?
Correct.
Okay, gotcha.
So this is something that we have to do a better job of at a lot of levels, is recognizing screen. They let us go right here.
Mm-hmm.
Stop, freeze, retrace. You see, he just decides to continue on.
Mm-hmm.
He recognizes it. throttles back down and goes and retraces his steps. That's one of the biggest things for defensive linemen is to realize as soon as you feel like you have whipped that guy and you're an all-world pass rusher, it's probably a screen and it's a trap. So you need to go back, retrace, and a lot of times you might be able to find that ball and get a turn and get an interception and create a takeaway.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's true. What are some keys you tell your guys to recognize screen plays?
Down and distance is one. So we want to be, like I said at the very, very beginning, is students of the game. You should always be aware of what the down and distance is. As we game plan over the weekend, we create a hit list of what they like to do. So with that, we know they run their screens, how they run their screens, and what the blocking scheme looks like for screens. But I can tell you one of the best ways is just rep this kind of deal. Show it, throw it. They've shown screen. They throw these guys by, and then now you're just asking the defensive lineman to retrace. Hopefully we get a faster retrace, okay, than what we got here.
Okay. With retrace, you mean to get back to the heel of the offensive line?
Correct. So boom, right here, he sees it. He's going to retrace, or he's going to reattach, like you said, to the hip of the offensive line, or we just tell them to just turn around and go find an offensive lineman's rear end. If you go find his rear end, there's a chance that there's somebody with a receiver number looking for a football, whether it's the running back or the wide receiver. And when you find that person, right, you're unblocked because they expect you to do what this young man in the white t-shirt did, is just continue running. So they think he's out of the play because he's run, but our end up top is now in the path to retrace. He puts himself in a position to possibly create a takeaway because of that, creating then a free hitter or an unblocked player because they expected him to be running out of the play. So that's one of the biggest deals. And it just takes repetition to get better at recognizing when to retrace or reattach to offensive linemen's hips when it comes to screens. This next clip was a little bit more of a movement one. What we didn't get, okay, we get a great movement out of the defensive end in the blue shirt. What we don't get, okay, is great movement by the defensive tackle in the gray shirt. Now, his aim point is coming more straight ahead. His aim point should be more at the hip, okay? Right? In this instance, right, this is what we want. This is not what we want. His aim point is cutting through to create better movement. So that's why he gets in underneath. But we end up with what we call two in the gap, right? Both end up in B gap, and that A gap is completely voided because we don't take good steps, right? He steps more straight ahead. Even though that foot is turned out, it's not, the aim is not towards the hip. The aim is just at that man. All right. So what he has to do is, even if he won't get to the center's hip, he needs to continue on this path, okay, and stay and close that A gap off, open that shoulder, keep that shoulder open, and now we've closed off B and A. Whoever would potentially be an outside backer or safety can then cover the C gap, and then we have guys that would scrape over the top from the inside.
Yeah, I got that.
Let's see if this is movement. There you go. This is what we want to see right here. All right. Aim point here. Now, this is, again, possibly a screen, but the movement happened so fast, okay, and the aim point was very good. Now, This young man is in a 3 technique, so that's why that hand's down, but he's coming across here, and he's coming across here. If you needed to, in order to be more efficient for your players, you could tell him to switch hands so that he knows I need to go this way. So my first step should be with my left foot coming across. Again, it depends on the ability of your players, and how much you want to change your normal base rules. But he can execute that. You notice the dip and rip from him right there. So for him, it works. And we get another movement here. See the aim point? This is what we want to see out of this. He's attacking this center's hip. Center step away. He's through, and he's through up top. So this gives us exactly what we want out of this picture. Now for us, this movement, he needs to try to attach to that guard's hip, knowing that he might potentially get kicked out. But then what we have is a defensive end that's going to do what we call squeezing all the way down. Now what he has to do is continue to follow that hip of that tackle and come all the way down. There's still a space. We don't want space. We want to take away space on defense because they want to create it on offense. So we want to keep taking that away. It'll take us right to the ball. I don't have my I don't really have my drills filmed, but I mean I can talk through some, Coach, or if you just want to open it up for general questions, I'm pretty much between the clips that I just showed and my PowerPoint, that's about all I've got. But I'm happy to answer any more questions, or I can show some text about our drills. I don't know if it's as good as showing film, but it is in the process of what I'm trying to do is film more of our drills.
Okay. Yeah, it's up to you, but I have some other questions on some techniques. I think that we can really get a lot out of your explanations of the techniques and the different things to look on. I think that's very good. And maybe we can talk about a spill technique a little bit into detail. You spill when you see a kick out or pull to your side on the defensive line, right?
So we're because of the way that we play our defensive ends are boxers instead of spillers.
Okay.
But if we were going to spill, all right, and you're going to take on pullers, ideally what we want to do is we want to take our outside arm, our outside shoulder. Okay, so if we're getting a block down, right, and the puller on this side is coming back this way, all right, to kick us out, we would take our left arm through the inside thigh of this puller, okay, and what we would do is try to dent his thigh pad. Okay, so with our shoulder, we try to dent his thigh pad, which would knock him off his path, and then we want to get vertical. Okay, we don't want to just go one for one and lay down on the ground. We want to spill. Okay, so dent his thigh pad with our shoulder, and then we want to get vertical, looking for the ball. Okay, so if the quarterback's back here, and let's say running back is next to him, running back's going to come on this path to follow his blocker. If we get vertical, we have a better chance of meeting the running back before he either bounces it or tries to cut it back.
Okay, and how do you set your feet when you dent the thigh pad of the offensive line? How is your I think on this play it's the left foot of the defensive end. Where do you set
Right. So
the
that left foot would be driving into that offensive lineman.
Mm-hmm.
And so, just like when you make a tackle, right? And
Yeah.
you talk about, if you're using the rugby style or
Yeah,
the
we do
near
that. It's
foot.
like a power step.
Exactly. So you would take that left foot and you would be stepping towards that tackle.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and again, we talked about keeping feet consistently moving. So as you step to make and dent that thigh board, right, you drop your shoulder, you drive through, and you just keep your feet moving, keep your feet moving, keep your feet moving to get back vertical. But you want
Mm-hmm.
to take that left foot and step into the man. You don't want to step with that right foot lead, because what you're going to end up doing is opening yourself back up, and then
Yeah.
all he's going to do is just log you, all right, or
Mm-hmm.
cut you off. Whereas if you step with the left foot into the puller, you're going to be able to be more powerful.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that makes sense. Okay, that's important. So if we teach that technique, we have to watch the near foot to a power step, and then attack the thigh pad of the offensive lineman and get vertical, right?
Correct.
Okay, that's great. If you like to, maybe we can talk about defeating double teams. That's always a big issue we have to defeat the double teams.
Okay. Um, so in defeating double teams, you kind of have two ways of a double team. Um, you have a zone double,
Mhm.
and then like a drive double. So if we had two linemen, all right, and let's say we're in a three technique, or a five technique with the defensive end and a tight end. Um, this would be, or sorry, uh, right, this would be your zone double, and the backside guy is trying to overtake from the front side guy.
Mhm.
Okay, and then this would be more of your traditional, 2-on-1 double team, a base double. Okay,
Mhm.
in both cases, right, it's important that this man and this man, they both beat this edge of their guard or tackle. Okay, you cannot worry about a second blocker until you've beaten the first blocker, because you don't know pre-snap what they're going to do. So you know in order to beat this zone double, what we want to do is we want to attack with our right hand, all right, into the chest of this, let's say this tackle, and we want to drive this tackle back out to our right, okay, which would then put us in the gap and prevent us from getting overtaken by the backside tight end, let's say. If we cannot drive the tackle, and and he is able to release, and we are potentially going to be overtaken or reached by the next man, then what we have to do is rip with our left hand, okay, and flatten back out. So again, you know, extend out, drive, okay, with your hands, push that guy uh, to close the gap. If he is gone and the next person is coming over to try and overtake you, you
Mhm.
rip with that outside arm, okay, and still run laterally to defeat that zone double.
Okay. So the key is for the defensive lineman. We have got the offensive tackle to the right side of the end. He's stepping away, and then he will turn to that side because the other one is blocking him into the play, right?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, got that.
On the so this would be your zone double,
Mm-hmm.
right? And this would be your base double. On the base double, same deal. We want to beat this edge first. Anytime we can get an offensive lineman's shoulders turned and go perpendicular to the line of scrimmage, we got a greater chance of winning.
Mm-hmm.
But if we cannot, as soon as we make contact, right, and we've locked out, and we feel, and we're stuck face to face, and we feel pressure, it should come from our side. What we want to do, what we teach, is we're going to hip into pressure. So he's locked out to his right. He feels pressure from the tackle. So his left hip should turn into that tackle, and he should run his feet, trying to split the double team.
Mm-hmm.
That's the way we teach it. Some guys will teach, just get skinny. But my reasoning to teach hipping in is you're occupying this one, and now you're occupying a second person, and now you're going to gain a +1 from a linebacker or a safety. Because he's got to get through you to climb, and he can't get off. Same reason why in the zone double, we want to try and attack this man and turn him and run him sideways and create penetration, and prevent this guy from reaching us, which would then force him to either turn up early or bubble back, which would then potentially bubble the running back's path.
Mm-hmm.
So on the base double, again, we attack the man we're lined up on. We lock, we want to lock out. We feel pressure. We hip into pressure, occupy 2 with 1, keep moving feet, trying to split it, and gain a +1 by a linebacker or a safety.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that makes sense, Coach. How would you explain to your defensive lineman the difference between the zone double team and base double team on the first two steps? Or what are they looking for?
In a zone double, that guard step, more than likely, and it depends on, if this was, let's say, outside zone or sweep,
Mm-hmm.
that this guard steps are going to be more lateral. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas, so then he'll come to you. Whereas even if you're running some kind of inside zone scheme, or a gap scheme, those steps are going to be more directly at you.
Okay.
Right. So
Mm-hmm.
outside zone, or sweep is going to equal lateral. Base double, so gap or inside zone, is going to equal at me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that makes sense. So I'm always searching for a rule to make it a little bit easier for the players.
Sure.
And I think that's a great rule how to work the different double teams and have them sorted out into 2 different categories. Yeah, that really helps, Coach. That's great.
Awesome.
Great stuff. Yeah, if we talk maybe if we talk about double team, we had some problems in the past to work against down blocks. For example, on power or counter, we uh, we struggled a little bit with the defensive tackles against a down block. Maybe we can talk that for the last question from my side.
Okay. So as far as a down block, it depends. Obviously, it's going to come from one of 2 ways. you know, if you're getting a down block, let's see if this will work. You know, if we're you know, this defensive tackle, right, and he's a puller, right, and here's our down block. We're trying to attack and get into that hip pocket. Um, what we have to rep, okay, and this is where we get into what we call our pod, so our 2-on-1 work.
Mm-hmm.
What we have to rep is understanding that if he goes away, anything that goes away, there's always something coming back to me.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if that's the law of inverse or not. I'm not great with that stuff, but you know, anything that goes away, what's going on? Something's coming too. So
Mm-hmm.
as we rep this, we know, okay, he's going away. I got to get my eyes back here. Same. That's why we say we have 4 eyes, right? You have your 2 hands. So our 2 hands try to attack this guard, okay? And our other set of eyes should get back to what's coming, where his path is going, to recognize what's coming at us, so then we can switch our hands and attack this new blocker.
Mm-hmm.
You know, the other thing that you're going to get from a down block is, you know, he's going out here and we just get a straight down block, right? We got to get what we say, we got to get busy now. So he's got to go attack, okay? And so what this is this is a straight to me. So anytime we get some kind of to me block, we got to get busy now.
Mm-hmm.
Anytime we get some kind of away from me, that is deep like this,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because you could say, you know, this key is, that's away from me, but it's kind of at a lateral flat. This is away from me and it's deeper into the backfield. Anytime that we're getting some kind of away from me that's deep or goes behind the line of scrimmage, we have to know that something is going to come to me.
Mm-hmm.
All right. And we just know there's that same thing. This is going away from me. Something's coming to me. It's just in a different way.
Mm-hmm.
But this is a more lateral flat step versus deep puller type.
Okay. When we have the pull and the away block from the guard, and maybe the center comes down to the defensive tackle, um, how do you take the down block um, with your steps and your hands? How do you make that?
So, you know, base rules. We're lined up in a, let's say we're lined up in a 2-eye. We attack the guard pulls. Okay. So our right hand would be nearer to the guard with our left hand across, you know, trying to attack a shoulder or a hip. As we switch over and recognize that we're getting a down block, a lot of times what's going to happen is you're going to get pressure onto, you know, that near shoulder for the center,
Mm-hmm.
or you know, a guard trying to block down on a defensive end. So as we get pressure here on this shoulder, what we've got to do is we've got to tuck this elbow in, okay, and get ready to push that hand into the chest of that offensive player. So whether it's a center or a guard trying to block down, we want to get our hand in there and we want to make sure that our hips drop so that we can reestablish a low base.
Mm-hmm.
And then it's just a matter of coming back to this getting busy, because we now have a block that's to me. So we want to work and we want to force that guy back in the direction he came.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
So
And
we're
you,
gonna
go
work
on.
lower hips, keep feet moving, try to extend this new hand that's in the, maybe in the chest of the center or the down block player, we want to try and extend that hand out, use this other hand to help clear. Okay. And we want to work fast, choppy steps. And there, if we don't get our eyes and hands redirected to this new blocker, and we don't get our pad level low and our hips down, that's where you see the pancakes. That's where you can get, driven out that way, away from where the ball is going.
Yeah, and with your feet, do you use a near step power step between the legs of the down block?
Yes. Yeah. Okay. We would step into the man, short choppy steps over long big steps. That way to keep that low center of gravity, strong base, and prevent where we're up on one foot. A lot of times defensive linemen, they take those long steps and they get up on one foot and they're off balance and they lack power. And that's how you can reduce those and just remind them that short choppy steps are going to keep you grounded. Long steps are going to put you on your back more often than not.
Yeah, that's great. I really like how you teach the defensive line. You offered so much points we can look on and try to get better. Do you have anything else on your mind you like to talk about?
Not in particular. What I'll do is I'll pull up the slide that has my information. So if anybody were wanting to get more from me and you want to ask more questions, the best way to reach me would be either Twitter or email. Oh, there it goes. Okay, so let me. Okay, are you seeing my information?
Yes, we can see that now.
Okay, great. So yeah, there's my Twitter. I have a website. I'm still in the process of updating, but I do have some resources already on there from these probably since March of just an accumulation of talking with other coaches, both about strength conditioning and defensive line play. There's going to be 2 roundtable defensive line discussions. One more of a presentation style, and the other one is just a straight question and answer. So there's even more knowledge there. I don't profess to know everything. So anything that I know, I borrowed from somebody else. So I find it as my job to pass knowledge on. So this is why I'm really honored that you asked me. I appreciate the opportunity, and I hope that you guys can gain something from this.
Yeah, absolutely. You offered so much great detail and information on the defensive line play. We absolutely get a lot out of it.
Awesome. I do have a podcast. It's just, this is more from my podcast is more about philosophy and program building and relationship building with kids and how to possibly get them better recruited. But I will have to say, if you really want a great defensive line podcast, I highly suggest listening to KYP, Keep Your Pads Down. Coach Ty Taylor does a terrific job with reaching out to defensive line coaches across Texas and across the United States, from not just the high school level, but also college level. Keep Your Pads Down is a great podcast. He's a great coach as well. So, like I said, if you don't see something from me, I would highly reach out to him. He does a great job. And like I said, I pass knowledge on. I don't hoard it. So if you need to tweet me or DM me, have at it. I try to get back as quickly as I can. This PowerPoint, it's something that I put together. I'm happy to share it. Just send me an email. And like I said, I'm still processing, updating my website. so that, you know, hopefully it becomes a really good, you know, vehicle for more information, and more leading to other guys who put out quality content as well.
Hmm. Yeah, coach. So thank you very much. You did an awesome job, and I think we all can get a lot out of your talk. Um, yeah, and if I hope we can stay in contact, and maybe we can talk about some other aspects at another time. But for today, you did an amazing job. I took a lot of notes and a lot of thoughts I will bring over to our practices. So from my point, I really like to thank you for your time. Appreciate it, coach.
Absolutely, and you know, as I you know, am able to get more video, whether it's drills, practice, or possibly even game film,
Yeah,
you know, as long as it doesn't give away too many secrets, or you know, maybe even postseason, you know, I'd be happy to come back and talk more, you know, and just kind of give you guys some more things that I learned.
mm,
In preparation, you know, if you guys don't get to play this time, and it, you know, pushes to possibly another month, or next calendar year, you know,
yeah,
I'm happy to share what I learn,
mm,
and you know, we'll just, like I said, we stay in contact, coach. I really appreciate it, and I wish you guys all the best.
yeah. Thank you, coach, and good luck for your season. I have my fingers crossed, and yeah, for today, have a nice day, and we will talk soon, coach. Goodbye.
All right, thank you.